Good morning, dear students. Welcome back to your English literature class. Now, let us complete the lesson Mrs. Donovan's Dog. It's reading and explanation. The last very paras, children. I looked down at Roy with something akin to awe. Now, earlier in our previous lecture, we had seen how Mr. Harriet suddenly met Mrs. Donovan, and as she saw Mr. Harriet, she just shouted and called him, Mr. Harriet, haven't I made a difference to this dog? See now, haven't I made a difference to this dog? Look at this dog, the same dog who was thin, a load of bones with a skin covered on it. And see what a difference I have made to this dog. It has changed. So, Mr. Harriet, the narrator, he looked down at Roy with something akin to awe. That is, something very much like very awesome. He had grown and filled out, and his coat no longer yellow with but a rich gold. So it was altogether very, very different. The dog had he just grown and filled out. That is, he became very strong and healthy. His coat, no longer yellow but a rich golden color, lay in luxuriant shining swathes over the well fleshed ribs and back. So his coat had become, the hairs had become beautifully shining hairs, and it was well fleshed ribs. Now nobody just could find any, could see any bones over his back. It was well fleshed, means it had a flesh coat, thick flesh and back. A new brightly studded collar glittered on his neck, and his tail, beautifully fringed, fanned the air gently. So he had a bright studded means might be it was studded with the pearls or the gems, children, and that too artificial one. And it was glittering, the collar, that is the belt, was glittering on his neck, and the tail, it just fringed, fanned the air gently. It was so smooth, the hairs, you can say, children, they just fanned the he just kept on wagging his tail. He was now a golden retriever, so he looked a beautiful big golden retriever in full magnificence. As I stared at him, he reared up, plunged his forepaws into my hand, and looked into my face, and he just jumped up and landed his paws, the forepaws, the front paws, into the narrator's hands and looked into my face. In his eyes, I read plainly the same calm affection and trust I had seen in that black, noisome shed. And he had once, when he had gone to that very shed where this dog was tied in that room, he had seen his eyes, into his eyes, he had read plainly the same calm affection and trust. And today too, when the dog touched his hands, he had the same affection and trust in his eyes as the narrator had seen in his eyes there in that shed. Mrs. Donovan, I said softly, he is the most beautiful dog in Yorkshire. And finally, the narrator, the veterinary doctor, Mr. Harriet, he just said that he declared he is the most beautiful dog in Yorkshire. You are the one. You have done it. Then, because I knew she was waiting for it, it's those wonderful condition powders. What do you put in them? So finally, Mr. Harriet, the narrator, he then suddenly he appreciated, he praised whatever praise she wanted, that the people should always praise her condition powders, her shampoos, the dog shampoos and all. So he too praised, and he said that this is all because you are using those wonderful conditioned powders. What do you put in them? So tell me, what do you mix in it? What do you put in them? How do you make it? Ah, wouldn't you like to know? She said and smiled up at me. Ah, wouldn't you like to know? That means she just smiled and she said that you must not be liking to know just for the sake of saying, just for the sake of talking to me, or just for the sake of asking me. You just are asking me about those conditioned powders. And if you want, you just want, wouldn't you like to know? She said and smiled up at me. That means she wanted to tell again, narrate everything about the conditioned powders, her shampoos and all, whatever she used to do when she was roaming here and there, to places and neighborhood and the neighbors' houses she used to go, and she used to always keep on narrating about her conditioned powders and her shampoos. So she said that, okay, you want to know, then I would now again I'll tell you about everything about the conditioned powders. So this was the story, children. How do you did you like the story? I think the story was really a touching one. Hmm? So, students, I just kept on telling you that you have to underline the words other than the words and meaning given in your book. You have to underline other words which you think that you don't understand. Write, search for the meaning in the dictionary, and then write it down in your English, your English registers, children. And now, after this lecture, children, in your next lecture, we will discuss the question answers and the exercises which are done in the book. We'll do the exercises, children. We'll discuss it, and you have to do it. Fill in everything, whatever the blank, if the exercises are there, fill in the blanks are there. Then so many different questions are there, children. We have long questions, we have the answer the questions with reference to context. All those things we will discuss in our next lecture. So this is all for today. Thank you and have a nice day.